Thumbs up.
Yes.
So hello, my name is Natalie Monteza, coordinator of the 13 Houses campaign of the Famine Homeless Alliance, or FHA as we abbreviate it. The FHA welcomes all participants tuning in from all corners of the world. We have people registered from Australia to everywhere, from Australia to the Americas. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
So for the smooth running of the webinar, I would like to request all attendees to put their microphones on mute for the whole time of the session, please, so that we can hear the speakers well and all go smoothly. So please put your microphones on mute. The second thing I would like to invite you is to choose your language channel to be able to hear the interpreters at the bottom of your screen. So para la traducción simultánea, abajo de la pantalla pueden seleccionar el canal de interpretación y pour accéder à la traduction simultanée, s'il vous plaît, sélectionnez votre langue en bas de l'écran. So as we go along, I invite the participants to send their questions through the chat box. We will pick them up at the end of the conversation during the questions and answers part of the session. So welcome to all to this first webinar on lessons learned from the Vincentian projects participating in the 13 Houses campaign. We are very excited to host this session. We hope it will be the first of a series of opportunities to hear from members of the worldwide Vincentian family from their experience in tackling homelessness in its different forms. As you know, the 13 Houses campaign is part of the FHA, an initiative of the Vincentian family to celebrate the charism of St. Vincent de Paul and to encourage concrete action to end homelessness around the world. The campaign was launched at the end of 2018 with the objective of changing the lives of 10,000 people experiencing homelessness. And in little less than 3 years, Vincentians all over the world have stepped up to that challenge. And we count over 6,000 people helped in 69 projects in 44 countries. Our aim is that this effort will continue and that there will be a 13 Houses project in every one of the 158 countries where there is Vincentian presence. So we hope this webinar is an opportunity to encourage new initiatives. And we know there are many Vincentians all over the world wanting to change, to engage in the campaign. So we thought it would be useful to share the experience of those who have already taken the first steps and who can tell us how they got started and how they designed their projects. So this is what we will concentrate on during the next hour and a half. Every 13 Houses project is unique and it is determined by unique local situations. So of the many projects participating in the campaign, we have selected 3 experiences involving a variety of target homeless populations and contexts. And during this session, we propose you to start with, we would like to start with a brief overview of those projects. Then go on a conversation with 3 project managers who will share with you the way they went about forging their projects. And to conclude with an exchange with the speakers in a questions and answers moment. So let me introduce you to the 3 speakers to whom we are very sharing with us today. Please wave and say hello, just so that we see your faces. We have Sister Winnie Mutuku, who is a daughter of charity, in charge of the Up and Do Street Children Project in Kitale, Kenya. We have María Escaño, Vincentian Marian youth member and promoter of the Just One House project in the Philippines. And we have Dawn Colapietro, a Seton associate of the Sisters of Charity of St. Elizabeth, who has been the program coordinator for the Sisters of Charity mission in Haiti for the past 5 years.
Good morning.
So I invite the speakers to put their mics back on so they can share with us and introduce us to give us an overview of their project. So please, Ana Maria, could you please summarize your Just One House project in 2 minutes?
Hello, everyone. Just One House aims to build a simple yet dignified and secure housing for persons and families living in severely inadequate housing conditions. With regards to the land, these houses are built on site in the respective villages, and the land is either their own or they have the permission of the landowner to build and live in that area. House design and materials. It is very important to understand what the person or the family wants. Hence, the beneficiary decides on the design and layout of the house, taking into consideration the space available and the budget. Each house has the following features: sleeping quarters, a dining area, a kitchen, and a toilet. If the land is their own, the lower portion of the house is concrete. In other words, made of hollow blocks provided with a cement finish. When the land is not their own, the lower part is made of corrugated iron sheets, and the rest of the walling uses amakan or sawali, which is a type of traditional woven split bamboo mats. The roof is made of corrugated iron sheets, and the lumber used is coconut lumber. Good local trees are used for the house posts. With regards to the construction, a carpenter is hired for 6 days of work to install the house posts, the roof, the walls, the wood frames, and other essential work that need special skills. The rest of the work is done by volunteers. The beneficiary, together with his relatives and neighbors, the village officials, and other concerned groups. With good collaboration, the houses are fully finished in 2 weeks. Lastly, as far as possible, each house has electricity and water connection. Provision is made for 2 faucets to be installed, one in the kitchen sink and the other in the toilet. Thank you.
Natalie, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Ana Maria. Dawn, can you please share with us your Stay Alive Haiti project and perhaps a few words on the difficult situation of the country that is going through right now?
Sure, thank you. Good morning. My thanks to you, Natalie and Ella, and the Famvin family for hosting this webinar on the important topic of homelessness, and to applaud your goal of bringing about systemic change to the lives of 10,000 homeless people in different parts of the world. I bring greetings from my ministry partner, Sister Diane Moore, and the General Superior of the Sisters of Charity, Sister Maureen Sharkey. I also want to acknowledge the people in attendance at this webinar who share our common concern over the plight of the more than 150 million and over 1.6 billion people that live in substandard housing on our planet. My role here this morning is to give you an overview of the 13 Houses project in Haiti, but it's impossible for me to address that issue without first, Natalie, acknowledging the recent assassination of Haiti's president. The degree of turmoil that this will create has yet to be determined, but of this we can be sure. The chaos and corruption that plagues Haiti plagues many poor countries around the world, whether you live on the continent of Africa, Asia, or North America. Wherever you live, the stories of the poor are the same: inadequate medical care, substandard housing, inferior education, and few, if any, government services. These conditions under which over 10% of the world's population live is not even what we would call humane. And this will continue to be the case as long as the top 1% own 82% of the world's wealth. In response to the cries of the poor, the Sisters of Charity began a Haiti ministry, of which the 13 Houses Project is a part. So far, we have built 10 simple homes in Haiti and are committed to building the last 3 this summer. But what I want to emphasize every chance I can this morning is to say this: the Sisters of Charity are not in the business of building homes. As Sister Diane has preached from the day she set foot on Haiti soil, our goal in Haiti is to help build strong and healthy communities. And we will talk more about that later. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Dawn. Sister Winnie, please give us your Up and Do Street Children Project overview.
Hello, hi there, Sister Winnie Mutuku. I work for Upendo Street Children Program. Upendo Street Children Program started 2020, last year in January. This project is focusing on the street children who are basically homeless. It looks at the age 15 to 18 years for the purpose of rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration, and school, which is empowerment. We recruit 20 to 25 on daily basis. Sometimes they could be more than that. And the response towards helping these children is, first of all, accessing the dignity of humanity, like basic needs on daily basis, starting from shower, where they have a drop-in center, a day shelter that caters for their basic needs on daily basis here. And then we engage them in the rehabilitative programs. And after that, when the child is ready, is reintegrated with the family. And what follows is the empowerment, which is the final product for this program. We like to make sure that the child who has been homeless, rescued from the streets and rehabilitated, goes back home, reunites with the family, with the society, and is able to live a life that they could provide for themselves in the future, life sustainability. We do this in collaboration with other organizations, especially with the government, right here in Kitale. And we work through referrals where, because we run a day center, we usually do a lot of referrals of the children that take longer period to rehabilitate. So our idea is to let the children be able to sustain themselves, but with the support of the families. We never keep a child in the program for more than a year. At least by the end of the year, the child should be able to meet with the family. And we like to bring the society and the community in so that at least the children do not remain alone in our dependency. We make sure that the community is also taking part in the growth of the young person who has been homeless. So we are going to be hearing more, breaking down into how this program works in the actual presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Winnie. Yes, so let's start our conversation on how you all got started, how each one of you took the first steps. So Dawn, please tell us how you got started and what were your first steps? Share your practical advice on how you started.
Thank you. Our disaster relief program, of which this project is a part of, began in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew in 2016. Matthew was the worst disaster to hit Haiti since the 2010 earthquake, and it left in its path 1.4 million people in need of humanitarian aid. With nearly 1,000 deaths and millions of dollars in damages, the hurricane caused extensive destruction to the country's already tattered infrastructure and fragile economy. Along with flooding and landslides that washed away and destroyed roads and bridges, it also left an additional 200,000 people homeless. 2 days after the hurricane struck, Sister Diane and I went out with our Haitian partner, Pastor Giordani, and walked up into the mountains behind where we lived. With most roads washed away, much of our journey had to be traveled on foot. We came upon village after village where homes had 4-foot watermarks and 3 feet of sludge and mud that had to be dug out. Phone lines were down, farm animals and crops were washed away, and the people were without food and water. The first order of business was to bring beans and rice up to those villages, along with shovels, wheelbarrows, and clothing. After several trips, we began to develop a relationship with one of the leaders in a village called Timache by the name of Manushka. Manushka became a friend, and when the immediate need and crisis had passed, Sister Diane and I sat down with Manushka and Pastor Giordani and discussed how we could work together to help rebuild Timache. On the top of that list, after putting in a well, was building new homes for those who lost their homes in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. And so the 13 Houses project was begun.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Sister Winnie? How did you start in Kitale? What were your first steps to take on the question of the street children? We can, please.
Thank you, sorry. I'll begin by saying that the challenge of homeless among the street children in Kitale here was a problem that had been identified by our sisters who had been working here for about 11 years now, working the social programs and interacting with the communities. They realized there were children who will be homeless, and often they go to the families and they are asking, where is the child? And sometimes the mothers will say, my son has gone to the streets, my daughter has gone to the streets, I don't know where they are. So from time to time, then this developed and became a phenomenon because of the influx of the children in the streets. And then the community thought it was something that they needed to respond to, and it was put into the strategic plan to be implemented in 2019. In July 2019, after completing my degree, I was asked to begin by conducting a feasibility study here in Kitale, where we would see in which way we would attend to the situation of homeless among the street children. And therefore, I began by going to the government offices just to be able to find out what, maybe if the existence of that problem is actually there, and if they have statistics that would give the facts on what numbers are around there, the age that is vulnerable, and what the government has done to mitigate these challenges. And also, of course, to find out whether they need us at all, because maybe they will not need us. And therefore, I also linked with other organizations that have been working here for the same problems. And I wanted to find out their challenges in responding to this problem, the age that they deal with, and how they do it at all. So I took my time to go around. In the midst of all that, I would be visiting the streets, because from my community to whatever the other place, you will be landing into the streets in the town before you go to any other place. And therefore, I'll be going around the streets to find out whether really they are homeless, because I was totally new in town and this part of the world. And I just wanted to be sure that this case or this phenomena that is being presented, that is actually there. And the truth of the matter is that I will be going around, and I met many children, many boys, especially in the morning hours when they, they will be sniffing and carrying a lot of, bottles in their mouth, and sometimes wearing so dirty because it will be in the morning, and then of course they are not sober. You'll be greeting and they are staggering because they just woke up from a dirty place like that and no shower, nothing. And they are now scrabbling for scraps that hotels are now throwing into the tanks in what we call tinglis around here. So those were some of the things that I actually began with, going around the place and also linking with other organizations to find out what these other people do and where the gap is. And of course, the government gave me a lot of support and presented so much of details around the challenge, and helped me to realize that it is true that the Daughters of Charity was needed here, and we needed to respond into the issues and problems of the homeless among the street children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Winnie, for sharing on how you identified the needs and how you went about studying what has been, what were the possibilities of doing something about it, and if your help was needed and so on. So it's precious to see that path that you followed to get to the project. So Ana Maria, what was your experience that made you start a 13 Houses project in Malibog? And how did you go about it?
On the feast of St. Vincent de Paul in September 2020, Father Tomasz Madrich, CM, sent out a letter where he urged all the members of the Vincentian family to take an active part in the FHA initiative in every corner of the world where we live and serve. His words touched me. And though I wanted to help in an existing project of the Congregation of the Mission, I could not do so because this is far from where I live, and travel was curtailed due to this COVID-19 pandemic. But going around our municipality, Malitbog, in southern Leyte, in the Philippines, I realized that although we have not been hit by typhoons or any other natural disasters lately, thank God, I saw that there are still so many who unfortunately live in severely inadequate and unsafe housing in very substandard conditions, which are sadly lacking of human dignity. The reasons for this are varied: unemployment, illness and physical disability, the lack of means to buy housing materials. Upon visiting the first family in March this year and seeing the state of the house, I could not remain indifferent. So I decided that I had to build even just one house for them. And so I spoke with a village official who was willing to help out, and we came up with a budget. With that, the first thing I did was to write 8 letters, to be exact, to persons in the Vincentian family and a few relatives and friends to help me out. The first thing to do really is to go out, and see for yourself the reality. You will never feel the plight of others unless you check it out. So my going out, my going around, I still continue to do this in different villages, helps me identify a person or a family living in inadequate housing. It is not enough to simply focus on the house. Important to get to know the beneficiary, and this is done through an interview and dialogue. Also very important to reach out to other people, both members of the Vincentian family, local counterparts, friends, relatives, anyone who wants to help. And that's why I think that we need to have good communication in order to reach out. Writing a letter, I tried my best to express myself sincerely and clearly so that they will be able to understand my vision and share in this passion. Where possible, those who seem interested, I make a follow-up text or letter or visit them for further discussion on the subject. So I think it's also important when you get started to have the budget. You should know how much you can work on and try to see what quality, the best quality that you can give them with regards to the budget. So make a short write-up also on the family, something about them to share to others, but some pictures in it, no? And that was a very, very big help really in getting me started. And of course, once it started, try to keep my donors, the donors informed to the progress of each house through short emails or text messages. And I do a regular monthly report.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ana Maria, for sharing that motivation as a concerned Vincentian, that decision to do something about homelessness, and that also that those things that you shared on how to look for help, how to look for collaboration, which were one of your first steps when you decided to do something. So I have a second question. Obviously, these to face and to do something about homelessness can bring many challenges. So how did each one of you face those challenges? Please, Sister Winnie.
I'm looking at what pushed me a lot to even realize the problem of the children and to make sure that, to realize that there was a challenge that we needed to get to attend to. And one of the things that it was very clear from the feedbacks and from the feasibility was the church presentation in working with the homeless in this part of Kenya. I realized that there was very little done by the church, and which was unfortunate, but as well, it was okay that we are here, Daughters of Charity, and ready to do it. After compiling what was the feedback from the feasibility study and all that I shared with the children, and by settling that there was a need that we needed to respond to of the police and of the support for children to come out of the situation of the streets. We went on to develop a dropping center, a shelter that included shower rooms, changing rooms, laundry area, and airing clothes parlor or shade where the children could be washing their clothes in anticipation to being able to give them some dignity to begin with the showers, and because you can only be able to talk to them and put some sense in their mind, or even to let them listen to you if they're actually clean. Because one of the things I had difficulties was, how will I face them in the streets because of how they looked like? And that's why I always visited. I wanted to be sure that they can actually talk to a sister. They can approach a sister in the street and be free to talk to her. And when I established that, then I realized that what gap we needed to fill in was to build a shelter, a day shelter where the children could come in and access the basic needs. And then from that, we shall learn with them and establish ways of rehabilitating them, and even together see what they want in life. And by their participation, then we move on to the next step, which was rehabilitation and family support or empowerment in their homes. So that would be the way in which I was able to face the challenge that I encountered from the street of the children of the homeless. I'm not sure whether I'm getting that question very well, even after I was reading it, but that would have been the way in which I mitigated, or in which we were able to mitigate the challenges of the homeless and of the street children to begin with, but towards in a certain journey of reintegrating them with the families, where then you are settling them and you're making sure that they are no longer homeless. At a certain level,
that's clear. Somewhere. It's clear, Sister Winnie. It's clear that the challenge was to make a connection with the boys who are isolated or excluded from society, and that you had to create a way of establishing that contact step by step, which was a big challenge. It's the first big challenge. So that's it's precious to hear your practical advice on how to connect with the beneficiaries, with the people that you had identified as homeless. So Ana Maria, can you please share your comments on the challenges, if you had any?
Thank you. Yes. Actually, one of the first challenges would be to this beneficiary dependency on the project, especially that it's a small town. People know each other, people know me, know the donors. But the way I went about this was that from the very start, I had a very good and clear communication with the beneficiary. That's very important. This entails a combination of gentleness and firmness so as to avoid any misunderstanding later on. Proper coordination with the village officials greatly helps because they are the ones who know the beneficiary better. Sometimes this is not easy to do, but as a Vincentian, I believe that each person has their own potential and we should trust in their capacity to do amazing things. Sustainability is also very important. Though using very materials like the sawali or the amakan all the way down, even the lower flooring, a lower part of the wall, I mean, would have been cheaper, yet it's not really that durable. We want the houses to last years, hence the use of concrete or corrugated iron sheets for the lower wall. But we also use locally sourced materials such as bamboo. They also last long, especially if they are not subjected to the weather, to the rain or other things. And systemic change is a very big challenge. No? Just one house aims not just to provide a house, but also to make it sustainable. So we try to do it on a case-per-case basis on a beneficiary. I just started this in March, so it's one aspect at a time, but we're getting there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. How about you, Dawn?
Thank you. Two of the challenges that we as NGOs face in third world countries do really relate to the issue of beneficiary dependency and sustainability. And I'll address the first one, the beneficiary dependency. In countries like Haiti, which is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, beneficiary dependency is something that we face all the time, because when we boil it down, if we didn't bring food, more people would just suffer from hunger and food insecurity. If we didn't bring medicine, more people would just suffer and get sick. If we didn't build homes, people would just continue to live in substandard housing or be homeless. There's not a lot of organizations or NGOs in our footsteps that would take our place if we stepped away. When you're working with the ultra poor, it's not a matter of people, building themselves, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps or making better decisions or being better stewards of their resources and finances. So if organizations like ours, like the Sisters of Charity, and organizations like everybody else is associated with, if we didn't provide the services, the reality is, who would? We would just then have people who would do without or have to live with what they have, no matter how substandard and inadequate that might be. So given this scenario, how can we strive for greater stability and sustainability? And the Sisters of Charity do that by building and strengthening communities through the following programs. Again, we're just not about building homes. Sustainability is really enhanced and supported through our programs. And one of those is our Water Women's Project, where women filter waters and they can transform dirty water into clean drinking water for themselves and their families. Sustainability is achieved by our Goat Project, when we give 2 goats to a family so they can build a herd to be used for food or a savings account. And in turn, they give back to us their first offspring to pay it forward, if you will, to another needy family. Sustainability is achieved through our Peace Camp by teaching nonviolent behaviors and communication skills to young people so we can start building a new generation of leaders who will focus on how the country can peacefully coexist within a system of fairness and justice, and not just to the prosperity of the 1% of the people who live in Haiti, but for Haitians across the country. We achieve sustainability through our school program. Educating the young is the hope of the future. The future of the country is in their hands. But only 50% of the children attend school. Only half of those will go to the 6th grade. So our school that we built last year which comprises 250 of the poorest children in Haiti, otherwise, if it was not for our school, would not receive an education. But education is not enough. So we have created a vocational training school in the areas of agriculture, cooking, and sewing. And education and vocational training is not enough without job creation. So we have a small business loans program so women can get a small loan to start their own business to support themselves and their family. So all of the women and all the families in our 13 Houses project are able to access these programs, whether it's getting a microloan, if they meet the qualifications, whether it is to purify water, whether it's to attend to our school in KVA, whether it's to send their child to our peace camp, whether it's to receive goats. So what we believe strongly is that the sustainability of all of our efforts in Haiti is achieved through providing these very different programs in the communities that we work with.
Thank you very much, Dawn. In fact, thank you to all three of you showing how you avoided beneficiary dependency and how you created that capacity of working from a holistic point of view, working on people's livelihoods to allow sustainability of your projects, and work on things like community building and strengthening the communities to create really systemic change so that things will change for the beneficiaries of your projects. But when we are talking about starting a project, there may be unforeseen difficulties you did not plan for. Was that the case for you? And please tell us how you dealt with those difficulties, Ana Maria.
Thank you. Honestly, I did not encounter any difficulty in starting the project. The first beneficiary and his relatives were very enthusiastic to build a house, and there was also support from the village officials. There have been minor setbacks, though, which occurred during the course of the project as the houses were built. Briefly, I'll just say that, for example, because each house is a special case. Some beneficiaries are not able to get the good support from their local village officials. So there is a difficulty there that the houses take a bit longer to finish. And usually, ideally, we would like it to be finished in 2 weeks. So that is the difficulty there sometimes. And well, to resolve it, this unforeseen difficulty, we try to ask help, and they come in, like the local police officials, some other concerned groups in the village or in the town itself, and they're all volunteer work.
Great. That's a good way of dealing with unforeseen things. Ask for help with all the help that you can get. So how about you, Dawn? I things are a little bit more difficult in Haiti.
Yeah, thank you. Certainly, well, two of the unforeseen challenges that we had was the level of violence and what that meant and its implication to our project in Haiti. And the other is the coronavirus that's impacted all of us around the world. And though violence has certainly been a part of Haiti life, always when, where, and how it will happen is what is unpredictable. Timache, where we started building the homes, is about 10 miles off the road, off of the main road, or one of the 3 main roads in the country. And these side roads are rocky and they're full of ruts and they have many twists and turns and they're barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass each other. So these roads are the perfect storm for being ambushed. That is why Sister Diane and I used to only travel to Timache during the day and why we always traveled with security and a driver. But during the last 2 years, the violence has escalated exponentially. Gang rules the roads, and there are constant gun battles over turf and territory. That main road that you turn off of to get to Timache has become a hotbed for carjacking and kidnapping. As a result, it is no longer safe for us to send work teams and supplies up to Timache to build homes. So sadly, we've had to choose a different location for those remaining homes to be built. The place we chose is KVA. It is where we started our ministry in Haiti and where programs are located. It's where we built our new school and where our primary ministry partner lives. It's really the community we call home in Haiti. But unfortunately, it does mean that Timache is more isolated and removed from our services and our support, which we continue to offer to the best of our ability. And of course, none of us could have predicted the spread of the coronavirus and its impact on all of our projects, no matter our location in the world. COVID-19 was thought to have spared Haiti last year with less than 1,500 cases and fewer than several hundred deaths. But now there are 20,000 reported cases with a death toll climbing every day. Though we know these numbers are terribly underestimated, there is reason to be concerned that the virus could spread with impunity, targeting again the most poor and vulnerable. So this has actually delayed construction. Last year, it delayed construction by 3 to 4 months. And what we did in the meantime is we used our sewing school to mass produce face masks. And so far we've given out over 10,000 masks for our community in KVA, as well as our neighbors in surrounding villages. So what will be the impact of the violence and the now, state of affairs in Haiti and martial law that's being imposed, and the growing virus, the coronavirus and the growing virus in Haiti? What will be the impact of those two things? I have no idea. Every day in Haiti seems like we have new information that provides a different landscape that we don't quite have all the rules for. But right now, I know that people all over the world, and certainly sitting around this table, the primary concern is just the safety and well-being of our Haitian brothers and sisters in light of the tragic assassination of its president. So from here, we don't have a game plan. We just sit and pray.
Sure, and I'm sure your prayers will be listened to, because you've shown that you're not standing still when there are difficulties. You've looked for a way to continue helping those communities. So I'm sure that will continue to be the case. Sister Winnie, what were your challenges?
Thank you. I think one of the greatest challenge that I never thought I would face around here in this work was the polygamous marriage in this part of the world and its impact among the children and homeless, and the dynamics of the street life, while some of the children are even in the streets. I would have thought it was very easy for them to be going home. Why are you in the streets? I should take you home tomorrow. But I realized that there was so much struggles that they were going through in their families, and that has pushed them all together to be in the streets. I never saw that coming. I didn't think that there would be difficulties for them to deny their homes. Like, I'm not ready to go to home now. I thought it would be very simple. Once we talk and you realize somebody is ready to take you to your home and support, then you could be going. But it wasn't the same case. Some of them were very hard, and because they have been in the streets for a longer time, they have become, hard calls. They really, that is the part of the life that they know. If they've been in the streets as young children, it was very hard for them to want to change. And I guess the other difficulty that I saw was the situations where the children will be sick, where the child is sick and we are taking them to the hospital, and the situation is that they cannot live outside. They can't sleep in the streets in the evening because of the condition in which they have. I didn't see it being a problem, but as I was on the ground now, I realized it was actually a serious issue. And that is why I had to be connecting with the other organizations very immediately for referrals, because if the child was sick, then they cannot be going to sleep along the corridors when they are taking medication. And then how I was able to face some of these challenges would be, the other great challenge was COVID-19, which has struck us big time here because of the challenges that it came with. And of course, we thought that we were trying to be able to support the vulnerable street children. In cases of when the coronavirus came, we had to close the institution. But then we decided to feed them in the streets and continue still visiting and supporting those who had already gone home. And that's why we wouldn't be talking about sustainability as the first stage in this organization, in this program, until the child is ready to go home. Then we see them moving forward in the next step with the support of the community, participation of their guardians and the family members. We were able to do empowerment for some of the children, and they were actually sustainable in their own families. And it kept them going until the time of when the schools had been closed, until when we opened school this year. And then we then enrolled many of them in schools and in the training skills. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Sister Winnie and Dawn and Ana Maria, for all these comments and all this experience that you've shared on how you started your 13 Houses project. I'm wondering what has been the most important lesson that you have learned in this process of starting a project with homeless people. What would you say was that important lesson that you have learned? Dawn, maybe you could start.
Sure, thank you. It certainly was hard to dwindle this down to one important lesson. There were so many, and they continue to emerge. But one of the things that I learned is that I'm not in control. I shouldn't want to be in control, and I shouldn't try to be in control. And for someone who's always liked being in control, Haiti's been an incredible teacher for me. What I've learned is, as a guest in somebody else's country, I have no right to tell anyone how they should live their life or what decisions they should make that might be in the best interest of themselves and their families. I've also learned that since Haiti is not my culture, my American and Western ideals and standards just don't apply. I've learned about the impact that the differences in race and age and gender and class and education make between my relationship with my Haiti partners, and that these differences can and do result in a power differential. That means when people say yes to me, they might want to say no, but they don't feel that they can, because we hold the power in the sense of funding, for example. That means when I think people are agreeing with me, they might not really think my ideas are so great, but again, are afraid to challenge that. That has changed over the years, and I'm very glad to say that Pastor Giordani doesn't hesitate now with invitation to pull on my shirt strings and say, Dawn, no, that doesn't work in Haiti, and tell me why. And, you know, over the years, I've learned the importance of listening and respecting and honoring other people and their differences. And honoring what they bring to the table, no matter how different that may be from my own experience. As with everything, it boils down to relationships. Everything hinges on relationships. So let me give you an example. There is a time gap between when we brought up food and water and clothes and shovels to Timache, where we built the homes after Matthew, and when we actually start building the home. So again, there was a time gap between we met the emergency needs and then when we started building homes. But some of my favorite memories of Timache were in that in-between time when Sister Diane, who was a nurse, would visit the sick and check on newborn babies, and I would play soccer and hide and go seek with the children. Laughter, playfulness, and compassion are great bridge builders and the building blocks of creating trusting relationships. So what I learned is how critical it was to establish relationships before we got down to the business of building homes. Another lesson I learned that was critical, it was of the importance of going through Manushka for everything, the community leader. When we brought food and clothing up to Timache, we left it up to her to distribute the items. We also left it up to her to choose which family we built a home for. She knew who needed what the most. We had not a clue. We learned that respecting Manushka's leadership role was absolutely imperative in developing a trust relationship with her and in working cooperatively with the entire community in Timache. So the lesson, if I could boil it down to, is the importance of building relationships.
Yes, thank you, Dawn, for telling us how important, like one of the participants is commenting on the chat box, is listening to people with their differences it's very, very important and key to these projects. Sister Winnie?
Hello, yeah. One of the greatest lessons I have learned in this project is networking, collaboration, and participation. And I realized I would like maybe to pick participation greatly because it is because of letting the beneficiaries speak out and us listening to them that we came into a settlement and decision that I am ready to go home and I like to go home. So I realized that you can't work for people without them. You must participate. You must let them participate, up a voice, so that then they will tell you what they want. It will be hard for me to be picking a child from the street and think that they are homeless and I want to take them home. Because then the challenge of advocacy and family comes in, polygamous marriage, where the child went to the streets because there were conflicts at home. And if I did not listen to that child in the beginning, I wouldn't know that was happening. So at all, I realized it's very important to listen, to allow the participation, mostly of the beneficiaries, and then move forward to the community beneficiary who are now the family, the community, because it is through them that we have been able to settle many children in their home. They have supported a lot to reduce the dependency and to help the sustainability of the children through education and empowerment. So I've learned a lot in that area of participation, listening, and of course, networking with other organizations. Yeah.
Thanks, sister, for that word on networking and on listening, again, to the voice of the participants in the project. Ana Maria.
Thank you. One of the most important lessons I've learned in this project, which is very new, it's just a few months only, is that solidarity, shared responsibility, and volunteerism aren't only words that we can relate to as members of the Vincentian family, but these people here, the beneficiaries and the local village officials and other concerned groups, they also, it's possible to encourage these attitudes in them. And I'm filled with a lot of hope, you know, and even more this zeal or this passion to continue building houses. One example, I'd like to, it's worth mentioning that the skilled carpenter, the only labor cost in this project is 6 days of work for a skilled carpenter. And we can't really finish the house in 6 days exactly in some cases, in most of the cases, but we do continue their work until the house is finished, and they do this free of charge and very happily. So that really fills me with a lot of, it has taught me that we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones who can help, but because we cannot solve this problem of homelessness, either myself or even the Vincentian family, but it's really an effort for everyone to do.
Yes. Thank you, Ana Maria. Yes, thanks for those words on the importance of a common effort, a collaboration between many partners. So to conclude this part of the conversation, please, each one of you tell us if you had one word of advice to other Vincentians, what would that be? Sister Winnie, perhaps you can start.
Yes, my word for anybody that wants to begin a program is that plan well and take your time to, in your process of planning, then engage the people that you actually think that they are poor. Like, for instance, you go to a place, you want to start women program, and they are not in the decision making, they are not part of that, you're going to encounter very serious difficulties. I'm not saying that everybody should actually have a voice in decision making when it comes to beginning projects, but at some level, some beneficiaries were required to say something. Before I started this project, I invited the children for Christmas party, 2019, before anything. And my intention was because I wanted to be sure that the children can actually walk from the town up to where we are. Because if I realize that they cannot walk, then I have a problem of how they will walk from that place to my center. And I need to structure that before I start the project altogether. So take your time, study gather your facts very well, and then involve the people that you think you want to serve at the time.
Great to hear about the importance of planning well and engaging the people, the beneficiaries to work with. Ana Maria, please let us know what your one word of advice could be very briefly.
Yes, thank you. If I had one word of advice, it would simply be, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to start a project, no matter how small. There will always be challenges, but be ready to be surprised by God's providence and strength. Can you just imagine if every Vincentian out there will build even just one house for the poor, for the homeless? I think we would be able to end homelessness pretty soon.
Thank you, Ana Maria. How about you, Dawn? What would be your word of advice?
Well, I'll go back to where I started, and that was to say that we were not in the business of building homes. We were in the business of creating strong and healthy communities. And so whatever you can do to orchestrate that with the families that you work with, I think will just lend to your success as well as your sustainability. You know, the other things that, you know, I'm struck with, and we've mentioned some of them before, is the whole issue again, and the importance of listening and listening to other people's ideas. I think of some of the great ideas I thought I had that were horrible. And I'll just mention two briefly. And one was, I thought it would be really great to build connected houses like a small apartment complex. It was cost efficient and families could cluster together. That was a horrible idea in Haiti. That's not how families relate to each other in Haiti. So my idea, again, my Western idea of being cost efficient had nothing to do with the culture of Haiti. The other idea that I had is we met with the community, we gave them several options, and we said, would you like us to build you kitchens and latrines near your homes? How can we do that? And what they decided they wanted to do was to build a community space so they could gather when it rained, or that they could gather to have a community meal, or the children could gather after school to do their homework. And they wanted that much more than they wanted kitchens or latrines. And we honored that. And it was such an exciting project for us. And I think actually one of the best projects we've ever done was to build that space for Timache. You know, if I could do it all over again, I would remember a couple very important pieces. One is to have a significant partner in Haiti, like we do in Pastor Giordani. The other is that we followed his lead and we followed it. The other was making and creating partnerships in the community you're building those homes in, and make them a part of the story and make them part of the planning. It is about their lives. It's about their homes. It's about how they support their families. They have got to be a part of the planning process, or it's not theirs, and it diminishes the success and the joy of it. I mean, one of the reasons I liked building that community space is we had fun doing that. And one of the memories that I will have forever is the day Sister Diane and I went back to Timache, and we saw children actually doing homework in the community space for which it was intended. And that simple joy for us, like I said, it's a memory that I will always have. And the other important piece, and I think, you know, my predecessor might have mentioned it, is the importance of just praying for wisdom of the Holy Spirit to guide your actions. And we tried to hold that space before we move forward. And so again, I will just emphasize the importance of relationship building, partnering with, listening, and praying to the Holy Spirit. I thank you, since I'm the last one to at least speak at this point in the webinar, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Sisters of Charity, to be with my partners around the world who are doing great things in their countries, in Kenya and the Philippines. And certainly we wish luck and success to all the people attending the webinar, no matter where they are in the process of building 13 homes. So thank you.
Thank you, Dawn, for that experience, sharing all those, let's say, the things that you actually lived during the project, and the feelings that you had when seeing how things evolved, and how listening to people was so important for the project to be successful. Thank you all for that experience sharing. And we would like to take questions from the participants if they want to know more about the experiences of these 3 projects. Please, we have been waiting for some questions on the chat box. And as we continue the conversation, don't hesitate. We're hoping to answer your questions as well. So please, we're going to continue the conversation, but do keep do send us your questions. We're sure that you're probably wondering about different aspects of the different projects. So
Yes, Natalie. Hello.
Yes.
You can hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you for
Do you
letting
have a question?
Sister Angela.
Oh, Sister Angela. Okay.
Yeah. So last time during our AIC meeting, you shared with us the project. And I remember I put their remark, here in Cambodia, we have many street people, homeless. And besides that one, I don't know, you remember Sister Violeta, she has contact with you. That time, we have identified already
Yes.
about three poor villagers whose houses were blown by strong wind and storm, but they are located in separate locations. And then we were asking if not necessarily 13 houses in one compound, but in different locations. So we have identified many kinds of homeless people here. The street people who are mostly mentally ill, but since we cannot build house for them because they left already their houses and they are just in the street, could not go back anymore. We could just provide them with food or some clothing, and then our presence from time to time, we visit them in the streets. That's one. And then the one I said, those blown houses. And we have also the local migrants in Phnom Penh. They left their own houses in the provinces and they flocked to Phnom Penh because that's where they can get the job. Their lands in the provinces were already fruitless or useless, I mean destroyed. And so in Phnom Penh, near our house there in Bang Trabike, they are mostly shell sellers and they depend on the landowners for the house rental, for the business, and with interest for the loans they make for whatever needs they have. And
Yes,
so
Sister.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing the difficulties with the different homeless populations where you are. That is, it's definitely, and we're very happy to hear from you and to have you sharing on that. What we'll try to do is to take advantage of the let's say the experience of the speakers that are with us in their projects. And what I invite you to do, Sister, is to write to us, stay in touch with us so that we can address those questions, which are very important because we see you're motivated to start a project there. And we would be very happy to help you to, let's say, for our orientation on how to start. The challenges are big, and probably because there are different homeless populations that you have identified, and that's already the first step. So that's a good starting point, and we can start from there. Okay, so we will take up that directly, let's say on a one-on-one connection. Okay, but we have been receiving questions on the chat box from other participants, and one of those questions is for Dawn and Sister Whitney, and also for Ana Maria. How did you start fundraising? This is some people asking advice for someone who has never applied for a grant before. So how do you create a budget, work out cost? What was the average cost of a house or of the project? All these, how did you go about dealing with the funding and the budget? I believe Ana Maria, you said something about this already. Could you share your thoughts on this, please?
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, I mentioned earlier that for funding, the best thing for me, which I think is the best, is to come up first with a budget. We try to list down all the materials that is needed to accomplish the house. And then with that, you can then write a short write-up, something about each family with some pictures. So then you could send the pictures with the budget, and then I make a letter and stating clearly what you want to do, and then say simply how much you need. In our case here in the Philippines, the cost for each of those houses that we built is 30,000 pesos, roughly $600 per house.
Very clear. Thank you, Ana Maria. How about you, Dawn?
Thank you. The cost to build a house has escalated because of the depreciation of the dollar. And so what originally cost us $3,700 2 years ago when we started the project went up to $7,000 last year, and we had to suspend the project because we didn't have the funds for that. And then it has recently gone down and changed again. So the price now is at 5,000 American dollars to build a home. And that includes the construction costs, the labor costs, and painting, doors, locks. It covers the full project. For us, we are blessed that the Sisters of Charity and the Dominican Sisters form a coalition to support our projects in Haiti, and they have awarded grants to us for the projects in building homes. And we have, through that cumulative effort and private donations, raised enough money to build 10 of the 13 homes and about half of the remaining 3. What we did was to seize the opportunity after Hurricane Matthew, which was, you know, it not only impacted the Caribbean and Haiti, it also impacted us in the United States. So people were aware of it and clearly were aware of what happened in Haiti. So funding actually and honestly came to us initially because of that. Then we wrote an editorial in the paper about the need for funding in Haiti related to the disaster relief and the monies we were seeking to provide just not for housing, but for food, shelter, clothing, and building wells. So it was a kind of a multi-pronged approach. One is we have an established coalition of people who are stakeholders in our efforts in Haiti. The other is those funding sources invite us, have grant opportunities for which we applied. And the other is that we seized the opportunity after Hurricane Matthew in 2016 to raise monies. And so that gave us visibility. We started what is a GoFundMe program or project, which I think is somewhat universal. And the other is that we have people in the coalition and on our team who can write grants, and that is extraordinarily helpful. And I don't want to minimize the importance of that. So we have people on the team who knew how to budget, knew how to cost out the project, and knew how to ask for funding. Not that one can't start from scratch, but certainly is an asset to have on your team or in your coalition. People who have different expertise. So if I was launching a project, I would certainly look at what my strengths were, where there were gaps, and I would try to certainly form a coalition that filled in those gaps, that were stakeholders and committed to our project in Haiti.
Great, thank you, Dawn. How about you, Sister Winnie? What's your share? Please share your wisdom on how you went about fundraising and all the aspects related to budgeting and so on.
Thank you, Natalie. The first thing is that when we already realized that we needed to respond to the issues of homeless in this part of Kenya, we had started preparing ourselves as daughters of charity, people setting amount of money, individuals thinking around giving out money to startup at whatever the time we will. But when the time came for starting the project, after the feasibility, I gathered all the feedbacks with the gaps and what we needed to do as sisters here. And then I drafted more or less like a project proposal that included what we need to do, the activities that will be required, the services that we are going to be giving. And then I was able to relate and communicate with our mission coordinator here towards looking at who would be able to relate to identify with our cause, which is a service to the homeless. And then we were able to identify that, and then we sent our proposal, and we were able to get people to support the project together with individuals that had already been volunteering themselves to do so. And when that was done, then I sat down to develop the budget. And the budget, of course, included setup budget, everything from the beginning, because there was nothing really that would be serving this project. It was a fresh beginning altogether. So I literally put everything in on what we think we should start with as a day shelter. But there were so many things that were left out, planning to start up projects and make a budget that would include everything. And again, I did not know how the needs will avail themselves, because this is a new venture. I wasn't looking at us even doing home visits and reintegrations so fast as within the middle of the year. But then starting the budget was the key, because I was able to set up everything there, include what was needed. And then I sent them to people whom we had established as our donors.
Thank you. Yes, we're also getting some questions about Vincentian family collaboration. And so please let us know what were your experiences in that domain. How are you dealing with Vincentian collaboration? Ana Maria, please.
Thank you. Just one house aims at involving the other branches of the Vincentian family. Where I live, there are no other branches present. But that has not stopped me from reaching out to the other branches one by one. Honestly, I never thought I would be able to build. Right now, we're building our 11th house since March this year. So I never thought, and I just first contacted 3 Vincentian priests, persons I knew well and who might understand and believe in what I'm trying to do. And I also approached Adamson University, and they have come up to help. And right now, the other branches, after having joined in the meeting of the Vincentian Family Executive Board here in the Philippines, they are also interested to participate. So yes, they are coming in with their support. But here where I live, there are no other branches of the Vincentian family present.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Sister Whitney, what was your experience of trying to get Vincentian collaboration?
I would say it worked out very well for me, except slowly, because I hadn't a lot of experience in beginning to get attached or networking with the Vincentians around here, because I was just a student before I came to begin a project. But I was forced to engage them and let them in because of what we were doing. For instance, I remember scenarios when we had to be feeding in the streets. They just had to be part of them, especially the Vincentian priests, because they are not far from the house where we stay. And as a parish, I will include them. I will call them, please, let's go to the streets. I would say that was one of the level that we kind of collaborated with them. We fed very well in the streets, and we also went to visit the homes in a very hard situation where sometimes we'll be sent away, even if it's the priest and the sister that has brought a child, because people have a lot of conflicts and issues. But I think it worked very well for me in collaboration at that level, because I hadn't gotten to a level where I would know other branches of Vincentians. They would be the only ones that I know here. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul is here, but not very much in the place where we are. And that was one of the areas that I wanted to try and approach to see how we go about and engage them. But certainly the Vincentian priests are directly involved, and we have been very well collaborating. We have been collaborating very well together in this work of the homeless.
Thank you, sister. Dawn, what has been your experience, or how have you taken this into consideration?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, I certainly think just from the core of who we are as Sisters of Charity, we embrace that Vincentian charism. And in Haiti, we've been able to connect with the Daughters of Charity. And I think together we have had opportunities for dialogue to nurture each other's commitment to the Vincentian charism. And I know members of our community went to Rome for the 400th anniversary, and they continue that dialogue on committee work from our leadership and our general superior, and to her leadership and other sisters as well. But in terms of the actual project itself, Haiti is a bit of a unique country. And because of its infrastructure, collaboration is not always a very easy task. Roads are difficult to travel. They're not safe to travel. Communication, you can't always count on communication because of internet access, and the inability and unavailability of funds to maintain internet connection and pay for your phone. I mean, those are just basic things that really do hinder our ability to collaborate with other organizations, not just with other Vincentians. So we have tried to overcome that, if you will, by just staying connected to our own community here and with the Daughters in Haiti, and with, you know, our own embrace of the charism as a Sisters of Charity. But in terms of just actual collaboration on specific projects like this, that is not a very easy thing to do in Haiti.
Okay. Thank you for that, Dawn. I think I would like to ask you a concluding question. And if there are other questions that come up for the participants, please do not hesitate to write to us, and we will try to help you. Like one of the questions was how to start if you don't have grant making experience. And I wanted to tell you that you can reach out to us. We're here to help. That's part of our mission, is to help you get those projects started, and we have documents and things that can help you. We can coach you along the way in writing a grant proposal and getting the support that you need. So like Ana Maria said, do not be afraid, just reach out to us and we will help you as much as we can. So one last question I wanted to ask the participants is, or the speakers is what does being in the 13 Houses campaign mean for you as a member of the Vincentian family? Perhaps Sister Winnie, you can share with us what your thoughts are on that.
Being in the 13 houses, this was a new term that came to me. And of course, after we have gotten into very good partnership with the Vincentians, and I was now in the world of the mission in terms of projects. But I think altogether what it takes me back, it's the words of St. Vicente Paul, the poor are your masters. And I have used that phrase countless times now since I started this project, because it speaks to me. And often I feel being part of this campaign, 13 Houses, it takes me back to the life of St. Vincent and how we started in a small project, just giving bread and bringing children together. The need of the people at the time was very strong for him. And I think the 13 Houses is doing great to support and to help us. I think through you, we are able to reach and to fulfill the words of Jesus in the Bible, in the scriptures, you know, like I was hungry, you gave me food, or you did not give. So it takes me back to that. And I always think that having this organization or this campaign has taught me a lesson of learning how I think I have a home, but there are people who don't actually have. And how can I be able to help that person to have a home, even as a small kind of structure? I have been so much touched by the way people have no home. And in Africa here, you probably think that people, because we are in different culture and people have lands and they could have homes, but it is a big nightmare for many street boys that we are serving here. And that has given me a lesson, just made me know that I can feel strong being part of this 13 Houses campaign because of what it does, and it's what I am doing, trying to do.
Great to hear, Sister.
Mm.
Ana Maria, what would be your thoughts on this? Briefly, please.
Being of the 13 Houses campaign means so much to me as a member of a Vincentian family branch. Though this project may be a small one compared to other initiatives within the Vincentian family, I am hoping that the mutual collaboration and support it is getting will persuade other Vincentians to embark on a similar project to help out the homeless. For now, the Philippines is composed of 7,100 islands. So for now, the Vincentian family support to this Just One House project is more of some financial, and of course the spiritual aspect. They're praying that things will go well for this project. But I'm hoping that after this pandemic, when we can travel, it's so difficult to travel in the Philippines right now with all the restrictions. Our COVID vaccines haven't been given yet. So it's not easy to get a plane to go to Manila or to other parts of the country. But I'm hoping that in time, other members of the Vincentian family can visit this place and can also really like hands-on help in this project, perhaps by doing the sustainability aspect, the systemic change aspect, and other things that I may not be capable of doing alone. And I'd like to just quote these words of Saint Teresa of Calcutta, which has encouraged me in this project. It says, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples." Thank you.
Thank you, Ana Maria and Dawn.
Thank you. One of the things that maybe we didn't quite touch on, or I failed to, was the transforming energy and power that's created through this project. You know, it's hard to feel good about yourself, to feel, to have dignity. It's hard to feel like you are can take care of your family if you're living on the streets and you don't have a home. So giving somebody a home is like giving them a new start on life. And then if you're fortunate enough, like we have been, to also support them in our other programs, it also gives them an opportunity to have a very, very different life. So I think that the transforming power of this program is extraordinary for the beneficiaries, but I'd also want to say it's also life-changing for us. And I know I speak for Sister Diane as well, is to have the opportunity to see people who are living in squalor, if you will, or whose homes were destroyed or living on the streets, all of a sudden, you know, want to take pictures of where they live, and they're on Facebook, and they take such incredible pride. And when you have pride, you have motivation, and when you have motivation, you have hope, and you can do things that are different that maybe you never thought you could. And so I think it's a program about hope as well. But one of the residuals that I just love about this program is what it's done for the Sisters of Charity. I live in a community, and last night we just celebrated somebody's 100th birthday, and so many of our sisters can't go out and do ministry as they did before, and in the ways that they changed the world when they were younger. And by having a ministry in Haiti, by having them as our partners, by walking down a hallway and having them shove $20 in my pocket, and have them feel like they're making a difference, is just extraordinary. And so, you know, the charism is alive and well in our project in Haiti, but it also allows the sisters here to be faithful to that charism that they hold so dear as the core of who they are, and that is serving the poor. So I'm really grateful for having the opportunity to be part of that catalyst between Haiti and our sisters here, and to be a witness of that, you know, in our coalition, and to our donors. And so it's been really an extraordinary privilege, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much for that, Dawn. I really cannot say how much we would like to stay on and talk for longer with you. Other questions have come up. Unfortunately, we have to conclude as we had set up a certain amount of time, but we certainly want the conversation to continue. And we will, as things are being put in the chat box and so on, we will keep in touch with all and send the recording of this through the YouTube and other means. Also, we will see if we can share the presentations or the content of that, as some of the people have been asking. But I want to conclude then, thanking you all for your active participation and for being here. We're very happy to have so many people from so many parts of the world. We hope this session has given you concrete elements on how to start 13 Houses project. Please do not hesitate to contact us with any question regarding that process. And before we close, we wanted to invite you to take a few moments to evaluate the webinar. The links will appear in the chat box for the evaluation in the different languages. And your thoughts and your comments are going to be precious for us to help us continue these webinars in the future, to help us understand how we can serve you better and serve this Vincentian movement against homelessness. So as you do that, as you open those surveys, once again, thank our speakers for their work with the homeless, for taking the time to prepare this webinar with us to share your experiences. A special thank you also to the interpreters who have helped us today as volunteers. So thank you, Sister Yonid and Jasmine and Sergio, who was here with us for the first time. And I wish everyone a good end of your day and your week. Let's stay in touch through that common objective of ending homelessness one house at a time. And please do write everything that you would like to talk about more on these 13 Houses projects. We will certainly take your comments into account. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a nice rest of the evening, the day, the morning, and of the week, and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.